I got the burgers that'll... I just got burgers.
Hey guys, what is up? It is me, Pagey, here once again with another video on Arrow Season 7. So just a heads up, we should have a new trailer tomorrow around this time when this video is going up. Or maybe a couple of hours earlier, maybe a couple of hours later, who knows. Now I'm pretty sure it's a sizzle reel, so expect footage from maybe like the first 3 to 5 episodes roughly. Obviously I'm basing that off previous seasons and their sizzle reels around this time of the year, but because Arrow is a bit more secret this year, there's a different circumstance with Oliver in prison and stuff like that, we might only have like maybe the first 2 or 3 episodes, but it could stretch up to like the first 5 or even maybe 6 episodes if they wanted to do that. But yeah, tomorrow will mark 1 week until Arrow is back with Season 7, which is great, obviously. But am I the only one that feels like that it was only like yesterday that the season's ended? Maybe it's just me, and it could just be due to like Comic-Con and trailers showing up every now and then. The fact that I do with these videos and stuff, they just feel like the off-season was, has gone fairly quickly. But regardless, extremely excited for Arrow as well as the rest of DC TV to be back over the course of the next few weeks. But in this video, we will be going over not something from episode 1, but actually from episode 2. So we will be going over the synopsis or description for the second episode of season 7, which is otherwise entitled The Longbow Hunters, which is exciting in itself, and we will briefly go over the Longbow Hunters at some point in this video, but here is that synopsis. In order to track down Diaz from inside prison, Oliver realizes that will require aligning with an old enemy. Meanwhile, in Star City, Felicity's attempts to root out Diaz are thwarted by Diggle, whose allegiance to Argus now requires him to keep civilians like her on the outs. Realizing that she can no longer rely on her old team or old methods, a clear-eyed Felicity resolves to find a new way to go after Diaz. So yeah, definitely some interesting stuff to go over from the synopsis, but of course, do let me know in the comments section down below what you were thinking of this episode, based off not only the description, but also what captures your eye the most. And of course, leave a like on the video if you are hyped for Arrow this season. I mean, based off everything we have seen so far, why wouldn't you be? So the first thing to go over is, in order to track down Diaz from inside prison. Now, as we know, Felicity will be facing some trouble, if you want to call it, in the first episode. We will know that whilst she was cooking up some pasta or something, or maybe spaghetti, I'm not going to judge what Felicity makes. Anyway, whilst all that is simmering away on the stove, she will be attacked in her apartment by someone. Now, in the trailers and stuff, we haven't had a good look at who it is. The top pick is Diaz because I think it looked like someone like a black suit was attacking her. And then there was also a shot of Diaz in a black suit in one of the trailers in a room that sort of looked familiar to that, that kitchen that Felicity was in. And of course, you would have to think that Diaz would still be a bit, salty and triggered by Oliver messing with his plans last season as the Green Arrow, that he would be taking that frustration out on Oliver's loved ones. But we know Felicity will be visiting Oliver in prison, guessing that she will just be like, yo dog, homie stepped up on me and tried to snap on me, but I snapped back, and yeah. And this will cause Oliver to try and do his best in prison to help with the situation on the outside, in God knows what way. Now, it doesn't seem like Oliver has too many friends or acquaintances in prison in either the inmates side of things or even with the guards. So it's going to be interesting to see how he goes about that. But this leads into the next part, which is Oliver realizes that will require aligning with an old enemy. So he found out about roughly 2 to 3 weeks ago or so that there would be another familiar face to Oliver in prison outside of the 3 already confirmed villains of Brick, Derek Sampson and Bronze Tiger that were returning this season. So this doesn't necessarily mean that this other mystery familiar inmate is the person that Oliver aligns with, but you would have to think that this would be the top option. Obviously, it is going to be interesting to see how all of this is done from within a maximum security prison, but anything is possible, right? I mean, Terry Crews's character from The Longest Yard was getting McDonald's into prison walls, so whatever Oliver is doing here must be like a walk in the park in comparison. But up next in the synopsis we have, meanwhile, in Star City, Felicity's attempts to root out Diaz are thwarted by Diggle, whose allegiance to Argus now requires him to keep civilians like her on the outs. So we knew Diggle was still going to be doing his thing in Argus this season just due to the nature of how last season wrapped up. It was really his only option if you think about it when it came down to it. But it does seem that Diggle will be taking his role in Argus a bit more serious than expected. In previous seasons, he would definitely exploit Lila's role in Argus in order to benefit Team Arrow. But now that he is in that sort of role, he obviously realizes what is right and what is wrong for the most part and to, obey what would you call it? The rules, if you want to call it, of Argus, or the way it runs and stuff like that. But I think with this part in regards to keeping Felicity on the outs with information on Diaz, It could also be just seen to keep Felicity safe. If Diggle is aware of what happened to Felicity with her getting attacked and stuff, it would be a pretty like shitmate move to just let her, know where he is or where he could possibly be and just lead her down a path that could result in more physical pain for her or even worse, death. But aside from this, it will be interesting to see how Diggle acts in this Argus role, once Oliver is out of prison, whenever that might be, and things are sort of back to how they used to be. That's assuming they go back to how they used to be. So, yeah, I wonder if Diggle's going to be a bit, of a changed person this season, or if it's just, the beginning of the season while he's in that role and it's like his only option, whether he's just like really committed to it or not. But moving on to the final part of this synopsis for this episode, which is realizing that she can no longer rely on her old team or old methods, a clear-eyed Felicity resolves to find a new way to go after Diaz. So, by the sounds of this, it seems as if Felicity has approached the other members of Team Arrow and asked for their help, most likely Dinah, mainly outside of Diggle, as I don't really know how much help Renee could be, just due to like the lack of resources that he would have in comparison to both Dinah and Diggle. However, Curtis could have been a helpful hand in all of this, but then again, we have really had no idea what Curtis is up to this season. He has not been in any of the promo material for the most part, so maybe something surprising is coming up with him this season. We'll have to wait and find out, I guess, in regards to all of that. But I am very curious to see how Felicity goes about all of this, as it is like completely new territory for her. Sure, we have seen Felicity out on the field on the odd occasion over the course of the show, but not like this, where she is legitimately on her own. So it's going to be interesting to see whether it is a success or something that was just maybe too big of a bite for Felicity to take at this point in time. But as I did say, the episode is called The Longbow Hunters, and as you can tell by the synopsis, there is no real mention of them in the actual synopsis apart from the title. But the lack of them in the synopsis might just be down to the fact that the episode is actually called The Longbow Hunters, so maybe they were thinking, okay, they're in the title, I think that is enough for that, so we will just reveal other stuff in the actual synopsis. But who are these Longbow Hunters? Well, the CW actually did release a proper press statement or press release a month or two back about them, and this is what it said. Team Arrow will come up against the Longbow Hunters, a legendary group of assassins recruited by Ricardo Diaz to enact his revenge on Oliver and the team after they took down his burgeoning criminal empire in Season 6. A trio of villains more lethal than any the team has faced, the Longbow Hunters include Red Dart, a ruthless and precise killer, Kodiak, a beast of a man with brute force, and Silencer, a master of stealth. So for the most part, it does seem that the Longbow Hunters will be very similar to their comic book counterparts. Apart from maybe Kodiak, they will be changing him up a bit by the looks of it. But it will be interesting to see how they are incorporated into this episode. Like, does Felicity come across them? Or are we introduced to them in a more internal way? And by that I mean we just meet them like through Diaz, or we see them go up against some like random people rather than anyone that we are familiar with on the show, or they could even go up against, some cops from the SCPD. There are a few options, but regardless of however or whenever or whatever or whenever, did I already say that, they are introduced, I am very much looking forward to it. But thanks for watching, guys. Hopefully you enjoyed the video. If you did, it'd be awesome if you could drop a like on it to show support. As I said, new Arrow trailer tomorrow, so keep your eyes out for that. Let me know in the comments section down below your various opinions on what we went over in this video. And of course, if you are new to the channel, make sure to subscribe. I'll catch you later, guys. Goodbye.